Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today has written 4 books, hosted 2 radio shows, and has spoken to over 250,000 people. He has over 30 years of experience in real estate investing and business, and now focuses on senior assisted living. Gene Guarino is the president of Residential Assisted Living Academy. Gene, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Seth. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because you are the very first person who focuses on assisted living that we've had on. So this will be quite fascinating.
Great. You know, it's really is fascinating because there's lots of people who are knowing that this is where everything is going. They want to get in, but they don't know how. So
yeah.
Good time.
Yeah, and anybody, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but anybody looking at, demographic shifts in the population, this is a big blinking red light or green light saying, hey, look at me, there's opportunity right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to start things off, do you want to tell us about your goals right now with real estate and assisted living? Where do you want to take it?
Sure. Well, and we can talk about where we began, but my goals right now going forward is really I'm more focused on the education part. I have my homes. I'm investing in homes all across the country. But really, my big focus is traveling around and explaining what I do to other people, just like this show.
Yeah.
And so my big focus is we have a short-term goal of 1,000 homes in 1,000 days. We're going to reach that. By the end of 2020, we'll have that 1,000 homes by primarily people around the country that I've taught. And then the big goal is to be a part of 25% of all of the residential assisted living homes in the U.S. In 10 years' time. So that's our big goal.
Yeah, I like that big goal. That's a big one. And you mentioned, how you got started. Do you want to fill us in? Because maybe somebody watching, we have lots of guests talking about, creative real estate financing, multifamily, but just tell us about assisted living.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with where I got started. We were 18 years old, professional musician, small recording studio, record label, myself, my brother, who is 2 years older. We were tenants, so we had a landlord. We rented a property for 2 years. The house was bad and the landlord was worse. So eventually we said, that's it. We're either going to shut it all down or we got to go to a new place. Walked out the front door, saw a for sale sign 2 doors away, grabbed it out of the yard, brought it home, made a call because we didn't have a cell phone. So we literally took the sign home with us and made the call and bought that property, no money down, primarily because we had no money. We were kids. We had no money, no credit, no clues. So we bought the house with no money down. That was the first one. And then the next and the next and the next. And the last property, which is, flash forward 40 years. So 40 years, every property is a no money down deal. I use other people's money. So I think creative financing is one of the first things that I learned because I had to, but I think one of the most important things that anybody can learn.
Yeah. So, and when you say no money down, did you do a lease option on it or?
No, it was that very first deal. It was an assumable loan for about 20,000 or 18.5 or something like that, and then we had to borrow money for the balance of it. It was a total of 28,500. I remember it now. 5 was the assumable mortgage. So at that time, years ago, you literally could just sign your name and take over the loan. So that doesn't happen anymore, for the most part. And the balance was private financing. So lenders who were willing to lend us the money, not banks, but private individuals.
Yeah, no, that's creative real estate is so interesting, especially to somebody who's maybe not yet involved in real estate. That's certainly something to take a look at. And in terms of assisted living, what is assisted living if somebody doesn't know?
Yeah, what we do very specifically is we now take single family homes in residential areas and we convert them into assisted living homes. So what is assisted living? It is a residential home, in our case, that's what we do, for seniors who need help with their activities of daily living. Now, the acronym for that is an ADL, and an ADL, activity of daily living, is pretty much everything you did after you hit the snooze alarm this morning. So getting dressed, eating, bathing, medication management, and so on. Nobody moves into assisted living unless they need help with at least 3 of those things typically. And some need a lot of help, some need a little bit of help, but they move someplace where they get assistance on a 24-hour basis. It's not medical, it's not nurses, doctors, and gurneys. In our case, it's a home. It's a group of seniors, could be 5, 10, 15 seniors in that home, and they're taken care of 24/7.
Yeah. And what sort of properties are you acquiring? Like you mentioned their homes, but are you like, what's your typical property that you're getting?
Yeah, the ultimate property would be single level versus multi-level. It's bigger rather than smaller, more bedrooms, more bathrooms. So if I were to do a search, go to any city and do a search, I'd start with what I call the 333 rule. 3,000 square feet, three bedrooms, three bathrooms as a starting point. Of course, I want more bedrooms and more bathrooms and bigger if I can, but that's just a good starting point to give it. So when you're looking at a home, you can have two seniors in a bedroom, but private bedrooms, you can charge more.
Mm.
So I like about square footage we can convert. I'm sitting in a room right now that's probably, it's big. It's just 450 square feet. I could convert this into three private bedrooms or a shared bedroom and a private bedroom. So think about space being converted.
Gotcha. And then obviously there's the business component on top of that, your customer service and the day-to-day operations of that. And I think that's something that a lot of new real estate investors miss. They don't treat it like a business, but you're almost forced to with assisted living. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you do have that customer service aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually, when we talk about residential assisted living, I'm going to break it down into two components. One is the real estate, and we'll definitely talk about that. But the other is the business, and this is where the big money is made. So if you just want to do the real estate, I wouldn't, first of all, this is a clue, I wouldn't buy the real estate and hope to find a tenant. Number one, find that operator, the person who's going to be operating this residential assisted living business. Find them first and say, where do you want me to buy this property? That's a real key to being successful if you just want to do the real estate side.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to own the real estate, you're going to lease it to them. It's probably a triple net lease. It's probably something where they're going to have a long-term 5-year term, maybe with options to renew or an option to buy. But it's a pretty smooth, simple deal for that property owner. On the business side, though, this is where those residents in that home, they're paying 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 each per month. So if you have 10 of those residents in a home and the home is grossing $50,000 a month, after everything is said and done, including paying either rent or the debt service, paying for the caregivers and everything, on that home, you're netting 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 or more per month. But
Yeah.
that's on the business side.
And you're getting the best of both worlds, really, when you're doing both, right? You can't, it makes a lot of sense when you look at it from an opportunity perspective, because you're getting the benefits of real estate and you're also having a cash flow business, right?
It absolutely is. Now, I don't know. Have you ever played the cash flow game, Robert Kiyosaki's cash
All,
flow
all,
game?
all the time. I'm a pro right now.
So when you play that game,
Yeah.
you know that it's not just the real estate, it's the business that's being operated in it, whether it's the laundromat or the pizza shop or an apartment. So when you get out of the rat race, it's because you own the right real estate that's generating the income.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is all about, is taking a house, but the house is a house. It's that business that's operating inside that, that's producing massive cash flow that gets you to freedom.
Yeah. I always land on the divorce square. So that's my Achilles heel.
Wow.
So yeah.
I hope you don't land on that in real life.
Oh
That's
yeah, yeah. That would be bad news. So how did you even discover assisted living? Because you had started acquiring some properties. At what point did the light bulb go off?
It was about 20 plus years ago. I was in a room, large room, hundreds and hundreds of people. There was a guy in the front, and he was describing all kinds of way to make money in real estate. And one of the topics he touched on was senior housing, very specifically assisted living in a residential setting. And I remember running up to him at that time when he was done speaking and saying, "Tell me more." And he said, "Well, I can't." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because I don't do it. I'm just saying you should do it."
Ah,
And so I was disappointed. And I said, "Can you at least show me somebody? Tell me about somebody that is doing it." And he did. And I went to them and I said, "Would you be willing to teach me how to do it?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because I don't want you to take all the business." And my thought is, there are millions of seniors who need this help. What do you mean take all your business? But that was just his attitude of, it's mine and I'm not going to share it. Mine's
yeah,
completely different. I want everybody to be successful. I want everybody to do even better than I've done, because there's so much need. There's such a massive opportunity. But that was 20 years ago. So it wasn't until my own mother needed help, then it became very real. Because when you go out and you start to look for what's out there, where can you bring somebody? It's expensive. They're full. You're not comfortable bringing mom there. So at that moment, I decided I'm going to create the solution. I'm going to create a home not home-like, but a home that I'd be proud to have my own mother in. Because I knew if I did that, mom could move in if she was able to and still alive, but also there were millions of other people that needed this. And then people asked me, they started telling me right away, can you teach me how? And I said, yes. And now I educate people all over the country on doing exactly this.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So as you've built your business, do you have any routines or rituals that you do maybe daily or weekly that helps keep you focused?
You know, it's interesting because I have 4 different companies. So when we talk about the business of the owning and operating of the homes that I have, I'm very, very hands-off. One of the keys to being successful in anything you do is finding other people who are very well qualified, putting them in position, giving them the tools, the resources, the authority to make decisions, and then empowering them, and then managing that manager. So I really spend 5 hours a week. Today is my big day. I got to do payroll. I didn't realize that until I woke up today. But so for me, what does that mean? It means I'm going to print out 7 sheets of paper. I'm going to review them in less than half an hour. I'm going to click buttons and I'm going to go transfer money from here to here. It's going to take me about 30 minutes to do total. And that's my biggest part of the day or of the week or of the month, because I really have it down to a system where when we say rituals, I'm very, very hands off. I may not talk to the manager for days at a time, but because things are running smoothly. So that's that business there. And I've got a series of other companies as well.
Yeah. But so that's now along the way, as you were building that system, there were obviously challenges that you hit. Do you mind sharing some of those challenges as you built that system up?
You know, I'm going to tell you that if you were to ask the question, what are some of the challenges, and then fill in the blank, it's always people. You
Yeah.
know, bricks and sticks, we can replace it, fix it, whatever, but it's people. So I think one of the most important skills you can have is understanding how humans operate and how we function. So years ago, there was a book, it wasn't called IQ, it was called EQ, so emotional intelligence. And the idea of, I just remember that book, it just came to mind when you were saying this, but understanding how people tick, why they do what they do, and what's behind it. So, you know, for instance, when somebody asks a question, right now we're doing an interview style, so I'm answering it very directly. But normally when I'm having a conversation with somebody and we're talking politics or we're talking something else that is kind of open, I'm always thinking about, why are they asking that question? What do they really want to know? Or what is it they're really thinking? And when you do that with an employee, and I call that person a team member. So when you do that with a team member of some kind, and you better understand where they're at, or a resident who's moving into the home, or their family who's paying for that resident being in the home, you better understand where people are coming from. And you might answer the question very differently for one person versus another. So short point is, the biggest challenge is people. So the better you get to know them and learn how to communicate with them, the better off you'll be.
Those are some really good points. One thing I did want to ask you is, just from a public perception, everybody thinks of assisted living and they think of these 100-unit large buildings, at least in my area. How do you find the home atmosphere? Does that get you an increased rent per room or cost? How does that affect it?
It certainly can, because for instance, I was at an open house on Monday, so just a few days ago, on one of my students. So in this area, they opened up their home for a residential assisted living. So I'm driving through the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful homes. Pull up to their home, but it looks like the other homes. You wouldn't see it. There's not a sign in the front. The only reason I knew is because I was invited to this open house and a few extra cars. But it's just a home. So one of the differences, you don't even know it exists. So with the big box, and that's what we call a big box, 100, 200 bed facility, there's a big sign. It's a commercial setting. It's off a big street and so on. Here in the residential setting, it's in the middle of the neighborhood. So now think about that potential resident, 85 years old. They maybe slipped and fell at home, and now they're at the doctor's, and the caseworker is saying to the family, "Mom, somebody needs to watch her. Who's going to take care of her?" And the family looks at each other and they say, "I can't quit my job. I've got my kids to take care of," and so on. So they start to think it through. At that point, they're going to go somewhere. They're going to get a referral from somebody. So if I make connections with that person, it's really not when I say that person, meaning the caseworker, that person who's making that recommendation. And it's not me when I say if I, meaning the manager. I don't go out and do this. The manager is the one out creating the relationship. If they refer you, it's really not, well, how much does it cost? They're going to go and they're going to see that home. And if they were referred by somebody, it almost, quote unquote, doesn't matter what it costs. But realistically, just to answer your question straight on, we may be more, we may be less. It's really not based on that. It's a matter of supply and demand in your area. Are the homes full? What do you offer that's different then? But we deal with private pay, not social, like Medicare, Medicaid in the US, and internationally it's called different things. But in the US, we don't do Medicare and Medicaid. We do what's called private pay. So you and I, brothers or grandsons of the resident, we're the ones who are paying for it out of our own pockets.
Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with the feeling you get when you go into a real home. You know, they can probably look out the window and see a kid riding the bicycle down the street, but you wouldn't get that in that big commercial setting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's the difference between being in a hotel that's converted into, or a hospital that's converted into, or being
Yeah.
in a home where instead of living alone with all of your stuff piled up around you, you've got a group of seniors, peers your own age. So it's a very different feel.
Yeah. And out of all those, the deals you've done so far, is there one that stands out as a keystone deal?
I think the first deal is always the keystone deal. So
Yeah.
the first one that I described when I was 18, that really set the foundation for, wow, you can do this, even if you're 18 with no credit, no clue, and you can do this. And on the first residential assisted living deal that I did, I didn't know this industry. There was nobody teaching it like I do now, where I teach thousands of people how to do this. There was nobody out there doing that. So the only way that I could learn it was to just jump in. So I bought an existing home, that home itself with the business that was operating, and I bought the real estate and the business for no money down. So that was the first deal there, and that was a keystone deal, if you will, because it led to the next one and the next one.
Yeah. And I really like how you said you bought the existing business, because then you can finance it and you're not stuck starting from scratch.
Well, yeah, and when we
Yeah.
talk about the existing business, one of the fastest ways to get started in this is to buy an existing business. The key is knowing what it's worth, knowing what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy. I just had a couple of homes come across my desk this morning just before we got on, and I'm looking at it going, I wouldn't buy these because they're too small, they're in the wrong area. That's why they're selling them. It's not a good deal.
Yeah.
But somebody who doesn't know, they walk into bad stuff all the time with their eyes, they don't know what they don't know. So you really do want to learn. And that's why we teach people how to.
Yeah. And for somebody who's not familiar with the purchasing a business side, I do just want to maybe touch on, what multiples are all about and all that stuff real quick.
Yeah, when you have a service business, and that's ultimately what this is, there's the real estate component, and that's worth what it's worth based on comparable analysis, other homes like that in the area. It's worth what it's worth. You'll pay for that. The business, number one, you never buy the business. That's a key point. You're buying the business assets. You buy the business, you bought all of the past liability, and that's not a good thing. You buy the assets, you can change the name slightly, but you get all that beautiful reputation and all the assets that go with it. So the multiple on that, this is not a tech company. This is not something that we can buy if it's not making money, oh, someday we'll make money. No, it's based on the cash flow. So when you get to the net cash flow at the end of a month, here's what we make. That multiplied for a year. So 1 year's worth of the net cash flow times 1 or 2 or 3. That's really what it's worth. Now, I'd be willing to pay 1 or 2, and I'd want to sell it for 4 or 5. So the reality is somewhere in between.
Yeah. And are you finding right now, just where we are in terms, everybody talks about where we're at in terms of the economic cycle right now. Are you finding there's a lot of pressure on the prices of assisted living?
When you say on the prices, you mean the valuation
Oh,
of?
yeah. So, sorry. Yeah. So on the valuations, and are there lots of people jumping in right now just because of the demographic shift we're experiencing?
Well, we're definitely finding, that's why we're having this interview, right?
Yeah.
We're definitely finding more people who are more interested in this because they never knew it existed, and they realize this is where everything is going. And I always say, Seth, everybody's going to get involved in this one way or the other. You're going
Yeah,
to real
that's
estate
true.
business, or you're going to be a customer, or your family member is going to be in that bed. You're writing a check to somebody who does.
Yeah.
So when you say pressure, it's not like apartments where there's so much upward interest in this, that it's driving prices up, which is crushing the cap rates. It's not like that. As a matter of fact, I don't want to say this out loud, but I don't really care what I pay for the property. It's the location that's key, because the real estate values go up and down. It can be worth $1 million today and worth $700,000 in 3 years from now. It doesn't matter. It's all about the cash flow. And if it's making $15,000 a month, it doesn't matter what this does. It's that cash flow.
Yeah. And plus you're going to be holding it for a significant amount of time as well.
And you said something too. If you feel like we're at the top of the cycle, not a good time to buy, lease it with an option to buy. And that way, when the market does come down, if it does come down, you can exercise your option and get it at a better price. But you can always lease with an option right now and still do this business.
Yeah. And with your properties, are you finding that you're holding them for 10 years or is that your plan? Like you're just going to hold them for the long term?
Well, I've been in for 6 years right now, so I can't say hold for 10 years. But I do feel, here's my, right now at this moment in time, depending on when somebody's listening to this or watching this, right, this moment in time, I think we're closer to the top of the current cycle than the bottom. But I don't know baseball terms if this is the ninth inning or extra innings or if it's going to get called for rain. But I think right now might be a good time to be leasing with an option to buy versus jumping into, because the properties we're talking about, these are not 3-bedroom, 2 baths, 1,800 square feet. That's not what we do. We do 4, 5, 6,000 square foot homes, and we put in extra bathrooms and so on. So there's some different things that I've got going, and I notice my hands start to move here where there's investors out there that want to own the real estate solely, and you can lease it back from them with an option to buy. That to me kind of takes the burden of, here, you own the real estate, and if it goes down, you lose. If it goes up, well, okay, good. It would have gone up anyway. But that idea of selling it off and leasing it back to still operate the business is something I'm exploring literally right now.
Oh, and those partnership connections are huge. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So how has, ever since you got started in real estate, you got started in a young age, but as you took it seriously and built your business, how has that changed your life?
Wow. I can't, it's really interesting because I can't imagine not doing it. I've never actually had a job. So full confession, I've never had a 9-to-5 job. I am thankful that I guess people do that, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So it gives you freedom, gives you opportunity. There is no ceiling. There is no excuse either. I did it when I was 18 with no money, no credit, no clue. So I don't care where you're at or what you're doing. You can do it too. And if you're not hanging around with people who are telling you that, get away from them. Hang out with people like Seth and listen to things like this, because the bottom line is there's people who are going to encourage you in life and people that will discourage you. It's up to you to decide who you hang with. But it literally can give you the opportunity to do anything. And getting out of the rat race, just having the cash flow to do what you want to do, that's critically important for anybody who wants freedom.
Yeah. And at what point did you exit the rat race, so to speak, in your life?
It's interesting because in my mindset, I know that I can make money regardless of what's happening in the economy and so on. So in my mindset, because I've never felt like, oh, I've got a job that I have to get to, or TGIF, thank God it's Friday. My mindset's always been, I can't believe it's Friday already. There's so much I want to do and so much opportunity. So I personally, mindset-wise, never really felt like I'm in the rat race or rut and so on. Financially, knowing that I can always do something to make something, that's great. But the idea of when we say getting out of the rat race, to me, that's as much financial, which I've retired probably 3 or 4 times in my life, and I get bored out of my mind and I always come back and do something. My family's, it's so funny because right now I'm 58, just had a birthday recently, and they're like, oh, sure, you're going to retire. Sure. Like, all right, I'm going to transition this time from this to this. I'll do something different. But the reality is money is just part of it. You can make money in a bunch of different ways. It's the mindset of, wow, I'm free. I don't have to think about that. I can do what I want to do, where and how I want to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that basically sums it up right there. That's a really good message. So Gene, if somebody's looking to get in touch with you, learn about assisted living, check out what you're doing, where can they find you?
I put together a brief website. I'm going to give it to you right now. Get ready to write it down. It's very simple, but you can actually download a book that I wrote recently. There's a webinar that you can watch and lots of great information there. And it's RAL 101. So RAL, Residential Assisted Living, but just 3 letters, RAL101.com.
That's perfect. That's nice and easy to remember too.
Yep.
And I'll make sure we put the link right down below the video so everybody can just click on that. That's great. Well, Gene, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing your extremely fascinating niche in real estate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And everybody, I just want to encourage you, no matter what you do, you find something that you're passionate about, that you love to do, and just focus on that. Just do that. Try not to get distracted, but do what you love to do, because everybody's going to want to hang out and do business with you.
Yeah, no, that's a great message. So thanks again, Gene. I really appreciate it. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well in your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.